Learn all about living in Chapala and Guadalajara, Mexico from expat Julie Galosy in this video interview with expats in Mexico. What got you to Mexico?
Well, what happened was in 2006, my family started putting lots of pressure on me for being so far away. My mom's like, we're in our 80s. My mom's now in her 90s. My mom is now 96. But anyway,
her.
You know, you got to come back. You got to get closer. And so I said, well, let's move to Mexico. 3 months going to every little nook and cranny, little teeny beaches, and, you know, looking. And the whole time my father's putting pressure on me to move to San Miguel de Allende. And I'm like, I don't want to move there. I want to be surrounded by the culture. I don't want to be surrounded by other cultures. Anyway, he prevailed. So I spent 10 years in San Miguel running a bed and breakfast, small bed and breakfast.
What year did you move to San Miguel?
2007. And then we stayed there until 2017 when I moved to Chapala.
And so you now live in the Lake Chapala area, actually in the city of Chapala.
So the house in Chapala is a little house. Well, it looks little from the front. It ends up being 4 bedrooms, but it's not in a north of the border 4 bedrooms. It's a Mexican 4 bedrooms, okay? And so it has, it's a block from the front, it's a block from the Malecon, it's a block from the plaza, it's a block from the police, and it's a block from the market. So it's like the perfect location. Don't have to drive anywhere. And you get steeped in the Mexican culture. All my neighbors are Mexican. So that was a great house. But for a relationship, I moved to Guadalajara, and we decided to, well, the question was, should we rent and keep the house in Chapala, or should we do this? So we decided that we would keep the Chapala house for now. And when we started looking at the rents in the neighborhoods that we liked in Guadalajara, it was like, you know, $1,300, $1,400 a month. And you could buy a house and fix it up and have a house to live in. So that's what we decided to do. We got a historic house in the historic center. We had to get permission from the culture patrimonio to do the renovations. We had to have all kinds of rules, you know, like you couldn't plaster. It's adobe, you can't plaster. You're like, who knew that? We ended up putting 300 sacks of sand in the walls. So anyway, that's sort of where we are now. We're in those 2 places, and they're very different. You know, Guadalajara is a big city, and if there weren't a pandemic, it would be great, because you move to a big city for the culture, right? You go for the art, for the concerts, for the museums, none of which are open. And we still hope that they are going to open, because we moved to a place that's within walking distance of the university, where the museums are and the international films, you know, things we like, and we can walk to the Degollado for the concerts. So it could be, if it ever opens, a great place to be.
You had mentioned earlier that this is quite an old house. It's almost 200 years old.
Uh-huh.
And what are you doing to it? I mean, you're like completely gutting it, or?
Oh, no, you can't do that. Okay, it was a ruin. Okay, you walk in the door and the walls were falling down, and the roof, there was a roof, and we were told that the roof was in good shape. Well, it turns out that was a lie. So it has 14-foot ceilings, maybe even 15-foot ceilings. So everything had to be renovated in the proper way. So they had to take the old adobe down. They had to put new chicken wire, and then they infuse the walls with sand, and then they do this combination of sand and caulk and water, and that gets stuck on the walls. That's your finish. Then you paint on top of that. And so all that stuff had to be done properly. It needed constant, total wiring, same as the house in San Miguel. So it's been a challenge. You know, we got solar, and the ceiling wouldn't support that, so we had to have beams put into the ceiling, and anything that's going to happen in a very old house like that. But it's in the middle of town. It's beautiful. It's small, but we decided we both lived in Europe, so we decided we're going to have a French rustic farmhouse.
How much did you pay for the house?
let me see now. We paid 1,795,000.
Pesos.
And now we're putting in another 1,800,000, something like that. Like 1,800,000 into it.
Okay, so in U.S. dollars, just off the top of the head, that's about.
In U.S. dollars, it's going to end up being somewhere around 160,000.
Your house in Chapala, how much did that cost you?
So I bought it for 107.
And how big is the house?
It's about maybe 2,500 square feet, something like that.
That's not a small house.
Well, I know it just seems like a small house from the front because it goes back. You know, it goes back, and I had to do some work on it. You know, I repaired. You know, I redid the bathrooms completely. I put in a brand new kitchen, so I probably put 20 grand into it, something like that.
Are you using that to go on the weekends, or are you renting that house out?
No, to go on the weekends.
Okay.
Yeah, have a quiet time.
Nice.
But, you know, they're going to put a high-speed train between Guadalajara and Chapala.
Oh, when is that going to happen?
Well, that's supposed to be next year. It's supposed to be actually done next year. It's going to be, a lot of it's going to be down the median. You know, it has a big median there in the high.
Sure. Oh,
up level.
That's big news.
That is big news, really big news.
So that'll go right into downtown Chapala?
Yeah. There is an old train station there. It's absolutely beautiful. They renovate it, use it for cultural events, and so it could go there, actually. It could end up there.
You mentioned something about working on a book. Tell us about this book you're writing.
Yeah, the book. Well, you know, after I sort of retired, I'm never going to actually retire, but I decided to actually be serious about my writing. So I started by publishing in various literary journals, short stories, humor, flash fiction. Never thought that I had it, you know, I've always been kind of a sprinter. I didn't think I had it for a long term, but I did. So I just got this idea about, I think it's because I was an immigrant in so many places. You know, I lived in England, I lived in Spain, lived in Mexico. You get this constant challenge of your values, right? And you say, oh, that's the way the Mexicans do it. Oh, that's the way the Spanish do it, as opposed to that's the way the Americans do it. So I thought, well, the books about immigrants are usually about the horrible time they have coming to America or whatever. It's always like what happens to them, as opposed to what they see. So this wonderful character came to me. Her name is Cece, and she's a 20-year-old Mexican who was pregnant and saw her not fiance, but her boyfriend die from collateral damage. She decided she had to give her baby a better life, so she takes off on her own to go to the States. And you are with her. The reader is with her. It's a picaresque novel, you know, like Don Quixote. You follow along with her because you don't know what's coming, and she doesn't know what's coming. So she keeps encountering people, and along the way she questions, well, is that what Americans do? Is that what Americans think? Is that, you know, she meets these characters. Some are helpful, some are horrible, some are mean, some are unbelievably kind, but it's just her experience and her asking herself, continuously challenging herself to say, is this what Americans do? Is this, like, one of the things she does is she keeps a little notebook, and she's in a store, and she's in the linen department, and all the tablecloths are white or beige or light brown, and she's like, where's the colors? You know,
right.
You know, what's wrong with these people? Where's the color? She goes into Walmart. She's pregnant, remember? She goes into Walmart and she faints because of the massive choice. You know, like in her village in Mexico, you can have 3 cereals. If you go to Walmart, I mean, what are there, 100 cereals? You know, she's like, well, what do people do with all this? So all the way through the book, there's these things, these challenges that she has. And it's called For a Better Life. So I'm very excited. Atmosphere Press. And I can send you a link because they are going to sell it in English at the Mexico Amazon.
Okay, so not the U.S. Amazon?
Yeah, U.S. Amazon too. But if you're in Mexico, and you don't want to pay shipping from U.S.
Sure. Yeah.
You can get it For a Better Life.
That's outstanding. Well, we run into so many interesting expats during the course of our interviews. So many of them have written books or articles, or there's a lot of creativity in the expat community in Mexico.
Oh yeah, yeah, there is. And we have writers groups. We had a writers group in Ajijic because I was doing some writing for the Ojo del Lago. And also the other thing is that people, if they are really trying to learn about the Mexican culture, then it makes them learn about their own culture because they're constantly evaluating what they see. If they can keep an open mind, right? If they're saying like, oh, those loud Mexicans, oh, those, what I mean? If they make value judgments that are negative, it doesn't help because they want it to be American, but it isn't American. So if they can keep an open mind, there's a great culture here. I was thinking about that the other day, that so many of the cultures around the world, I've been to over 100 countries now. I worked in 27. So many of the cultures around the world are becoming homogenized. They're becoming American. They've got Levi's and Gap, and they're probably all bankrupt now, but they have all those. But if you go to Mexico, you can even go to something like Degollado for a concert, and they'll be dressed in Mexican clothes. Not some American knockoff, right? They won't look like Americans. They'll look like Mexicans. They'll have on the cowboy boots. They'll have on the pressed jeans. They'll have on the shirt. And then when you go to their fiestas, how beautiful the hair is, how beautiful, and those are native dresses. They keep that. And in most of the world, those are costumes now. They're brought out to show foreigners some kind of dance or something. So it's very interesting to see how strong that culture is, that it's still here in the midst of being a neighbor of the U.S. So I really like that part of Mexico.
How are your Spanish language skills?
Yeah, they were much better when I lived in Spain, even though most people didn't speak Spanish, they spoke Catalan, but they didn't speak English. Now I'm surrounded by an English community, and that really hurts the skills. But I can negotiate with the bank. I've negotiated all the loans. I've negotiated with the banks. I've negotiated with the government. I've been, it's odd to me that San Miguel, which is so hugely English, the people who are in the offices there, like the bankers and the government, don't speak English. Whereas Chapala, which is a small town, and there's not, in Chapala itself, there's not that many English-speaking people, but the bankers speak English, the notaries speak English, the doctors speak English. That was a surprise. Not good for my Spanish, though. And I would totally recommend that people learn Spanish.
So what is the number one thing you love about living in Mexico?
I like the strength of the families. I like how it would never occur to them to separate the generations to have a life. The generations go together. Like New Year's Eve in Chapala is a joy because they put their tables on the Malecon, and there's a band, and everybody dances, and it's the babies, it's the teens, it's the parents, it's the grandparents, and they're all together. That's my number one thing. I love it.
Julie, thanks so much for spending time with us this morning.
Thank you so much.